Hi everyone, Thursday night, 9 o'clock. Welcome to the Handicap Rugby Chat that matters. Well, looking forward to getting stuck into plenty of rugby this week. I must say I'm coming off a pretty poor weekend myself, but made up for that at the poker tables last night. Played my monthly game and absolutely took the boys to the cleaners. It was a lot of fun, I can tell you. But I got a bit of ammo heading into the weekend as well. Well, we've got a full house of rugby to talk about, and we've got the United Rugby Championship, we've got the Gallagher Premiership, and of course the Bunnings MPC as well. It looked for a long time today that I might only have one guest on the show, but I'm pleased to say the second guest managed to get his power shortages sorted out. And let me welcome first the conductor. Conductor, the overseas viewers, and we've got a lot of them here on the Good for the Game handicap show, must wonder why we talk about power failures every week.
Yeah, Brent, it's always a bit of a guessing game with our electricity at the moment. So we had load shedding, and then someone reallocated our cables in our road last night. So we sat with our power for 12 hours. So yeah, it's a bit of a luxury, down south in South Africa at the moment to have the lights on.
Yeah, it certainly is. And joining us as well as at Thoughts on Sports, Neil, good to have you back on the show. I know you've been on a pretty decent run of rugby betting and managed to get out of last weekend unscathed as well. Good to have you back and looking forward to a good weekend.
No, Brent, over the moon for another weekend of rugby betting. I think last weekend was a bit of a banana peel for all punters out there. It was just sort of a bit of an unpredictable one. The punts that you thought were an absolute shoe-in ended up as narrow losses. The punts which you were sort of 20% confident on ended up being resounding winners. So I think it was just one of those weekends. But I think if you stay consistent, stick to the game, you'll always end up on top over the bookies if you have a solid strategy. And I just must say that it seems with all the power outages that the conductor's electric razor was unable to be charged there.
That's it. He's looking a little bit hairy there. The lad's been under the whip. So, yeah, conductor, looking the part there, I must admit. You're looking like a couple of the rugby players I've seen in the Premiership, I can tell you. Let's get, before we get into the game, actually, I just want to welcome all the live viewers in the live chat. I want to mention that because two of the guys have been talking for about 10 minutes before the show already, and that is Peter Paul and Ruan Farid. Now, Ruan, correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat. I think your Twitter handle is @SolitudeSA, and I've been following him with quite a bit of interest because he started playing chess. Now, I'm not much of a chess player myself, but he's got into that, and it strikes me that chess could be a sport that there could be quite a lot of betting on. And I watched a Netflix program, I forget what it was called now, but it got me quite interested in it, and Ruan seems to be on that. So if you're interested in chess, follow him. He posts about his chess every day, and I must say I'm finding it quite interesting, despite the fact that I'm not much of a chess player myself. So welcome to all the guys in the live chat. Mark joining us as well. And yeah, looking forward to a good show, which we'll get stuck into straight away. And Neil, let's start with you. We're going to talk. Let's start off with the United Rugby Championship. And we've got two games I see taking place tomorrow night. And we'll start off with the Dragons against the Stormers. And here we got the Dragons favourite at -3.5. I actually priced this, if I'm not mistaken, as Stormers very slight favourite. So my initial instinct is leaning Stormers here. What are your thoughts?
No, Brent, I think this is one of my strongest fancies in the URC. I'm big on the Dragons here. Couple of reasons from my side. They've got an all-Welsh back row, Wainwright, Basham, and Moriarty. For me, that is absolutely massive. 3 players with international experience. They're going to absolutely terrorise the Stormers at the breakdown. Stormers do have a couple of weeks of Northern Hemisphere reffing behind them, but I just don't think that that's enough to sort of keep up with this Dragon side. Dragon side is the form team of the competition. They've covered all 3 spreads so far in the competition. Clearly underrated by the bookmakers. At home, at Rodney Parade. I can't believe we're getting only a 2-point handicap here against a Stormers team, which is are perennial underperformers on the road. For me, this is a 6-0 or 7-point handicap, so I'm more than happy to side with the Dragons on the minus here as one of my strongest URC punts first out the gate. Very, very excited to see Jordan Owolafela on the wing. He was quite impressive for the Western Force earlier this year, and also for the Leicester Tigers before that. And also the other player who's going to be coming with a vengeance is Jonah Holmes, who was recently left out of the Welsh squad that Wayne Pivich did announce. And for me, he's one of the most underrated players in Welsh rugby. So I think he's going to have an absolute stormer tomorrow night, and I expect the Dragons to romp home.
I must say, you've totally thrown me off my initial thoughts of the game. And it's great to see the Dragons playing so well. And he hasn't been on the show for a while, to my knowledge, but Jules used to, he's actually from Dragons Den, and we used to tease him quite a lot about the Dragons, but they certainly are playing some excellent rugby. Just before I bring the conductor in there, Oraclepedia, who I think is going to be back on the show in the time for the internationals. That's my prediction as well. Just complimenting the conductor on his beard, and welcome also to the wager, Warlock. Now, conductor, there's no doubt about it. Thoughts on Sports says come in there with a confident pick first up. There's no sitting on the fence for the man there.
Yeah, Brent. So just wanted to reply to that comment about the beard. I just want to it's obviously there's a long-term plan. I'm getting ready for my re-emergence at Loftus, and when you rock up at Loftus in the Hilux double cab, you can't be clean shaven. So it's all part of a strategy just to blend in with the locals. So
I like it.
So yeah, I mean, Brent, geez, I mean, look, I tilted quite heavily on the Stormers plus last weekend after the Sharks showing. It just seemed like the SA sides just might rock up for that round last weekend. So I had a massive bet on the Stormers plus. Eventually, I was very deep on that, and then I had not as big, but I had a big strike on over 44.5 in the Stormers game, and I was physically ill after 80 minutes. 40 points in the first half, not 1 point in the second half. I honestly couldn't believe it. It's after the first half, you basically start like wandering around the house, start doing other things, looking at the lineup for the other game, etc., putting other bets down because you think it's pretty much done. And I honestly could not believe that didn't score 1 point in the second half. So that was absolute heartbreak hotel for me. But nevertheless, it was a profit for me on an Edinburgh Stormers game. I do agree with Neil on his thoughts regarding Dragons. They played well so far. They ran Leinster close, very, very close. They should have actually won the game. Very, very good showing in Galway against Connacht. It's a ground they haven't won in many, many years. I think it's 15 odd years. I think so. They've got a poor record there. I agree with the sentiments. I won't be taking that bet. I like the over 45.5. I know it is Friday nights in Galway. In Newport. But the pitch should be in good nick. It was obviously relayed recently, so it should be in good nick. The referee, I can't remember exactly who it is, but it's nobody. It's nobody that sort of stands out to me as an unders ref. And I agree with Neil. Jonah Holmes is playing fantastic rugby. I think it's Flav, Sam Davies. He's been kicking well, and I expect the Stormers to get a couple of tries, get some points on the board. Evan Roos has been playing like an absolute demon. Warwick Gallant is just been playing great rugby to me. So I do think Stormers will add to the scoreboard. But yeah, I think the Dragons' power with guys like Ross Moriarty and Aaron Wainwright's going to be too much for them. But I expect it to be a couple of points on the board, and 45.5 on a good pitch and good weather. It just seems a bit low to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you mentioned that game, and it was Henrik often talks about a game of two halves. And Neil, am I right in saying you also had a bit of an interest? I think I saw something from you. You had a bit of an overs interest there as well. That was something like 42.5, and there was a pointless second half. I mean, that is what can you do? I mean, you're banking that at half time. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I think you summed it up, Brent. And that was just sort of the theme of the weekend for me. Those which you thought were winners weren't. So yeah, but it's just one of those where you write it off as an anomaly. You can't be too disappointed with it. You're going to get one or two of these in each punting season that you have. It is what it is. Don't hop on the past and just look forward to the future. And yeah.
No, it's actually interesting. I know Gary Lenton, we used to have him on the GG Gaming Gone Match. I often used to use poker analogies. And I think something that happened to me last night at poker, I was quite nicely up in my poker game. And I was playing against, there was one player, he's quite a loose player in our game. And he announced before he saw his cards, I know he hadn't looked at his cards, he says, I'm going all in this hand. And he had a good couple of grand in front of him there. And he announced that. So I looked down at 10 Jack. And anyway, we go around. He doesn't go all in before the flop. The flop comes 10-10-4. So I've hit the set. I've got 3 10s. I then think, let me lure this guy into the trap. So I bet like 10 chips. And he comes over the top, all in. I mean, I'm thinking, I've got this guy. I was well up at that time. So, of course, I call him. And what does he turn over? 10 king. So he's got me beat with and in fact, he even got the full house, the king came. But the point is, I lost virtually my whole stack to that. But I couldn't, I could have got upset about it and that sort of stuff, and I probably would have a while ago. But the reality is, there was no way for me to get out of losing that. It was just one of those things where whatever I did there, I was going to lose my money. And it just happened that way. And fortunately from there, I managed to recover. And it's exactly the same as punting. You're quite right. You have your strategy, you stick to it. And the longer you punt, you start accepting the losses. You don't enjoy the losses, but you accept them and you don't let them throw you off your game. So yeah, I think sound advice there. And Neil, we'll stick with you for the next game. It's Ulster up against the Lions. I handicapped this game at 14.5 Ulster. I must admit that I would have been all over the 14.5. Maybe I was hoping for the 14.5. Here we got a handicap, Neil, of 19.5 and a points line of 51.
Sure, Brent, tricky one. If Ulster were at full strength, if they had the likes of John Cooney, Matt Moore in the front row in that Ulster team, I'd be all over the minus there. Ulster exceptionally strong at the Kingspan, but a couple of injury concerns there. But then once again, it's just really difficult to put money behind this Lions side, even though they have covered a couple of handicaps on this tour. I just look at Evia for you at fly half, and there's absolutely no way that he's able to command a game against a fast-paced side such as Ulster. Ulster are going to be absolutely boosted by the likes of Will Addison, the Irish international, who's had a couple of injury concerns. I think he's been out for the last 2 seasons, but he's absolutely electric. They've also got Craig Gilroy in the back row, Sam Carter in the second row, Rob Herring. I mean, that's enough quality in that Ulster side. So for me, it's not a confident play, but I'm probably leaning an Ulster minus here, or alternatively look for the lowest overs and Ulster points I can find, and hopefully get it at about 33.5.
Yeah, I see 35.5 at play, but as you say, shop around on the day. You might get something more there. Conductor, are you in agreement with that? I mean, the handicap is high.
Yeah, 100% agreement.
While Neil was talking, I was looking at the points lines and thinking Ulster overs.
Yeah, 100%. I'm 100% agreement with Neil on his sentiment there. If it was a John Cooney in Madigan 9-10 combination, I would have flown into the minus. I just think that Ulster play at such a high tempo that I don't think the Lions will be able to keep pace with them. It was a bit of a pity last week. I was confident that the Glasgow Lions game would be high scoring, and just ended up being a wet squid, just fizzling out there. That did nothing much happen in that game. The rain came in quite heavily, and just a lot of mistakes. Glasgow had opportunities, but just weren't clinical enough. A Friday night to Kingspan with that, we're standing up for the Ulstermen ringing around the ground. It's tough to see the Lions keeping pace with this. So it is a high handicap. Gun to my head, I'd probably take the minus 20.5 on Ulster, even though they are missing guys like Robert Balakoon, missing heaps of guys and a lot of quality in their side. And agree with Neil again on I would have liked to have looked at the over 51.5. I find that's a low for a high tempo team like Ulster and Lions. They like to swing the ball, but Ulster have got a good defense. So I'd rather look at Ulster points overs in isolation. If I can get a 33.5, I'd probably take that. 35.5 starts to look a bit higher. But saying that if Ulster in the mood tonight, I think they could put 40 past the Lions. I'm not a big fan of Eva for you, as Neil says there. And they've got a couple of weaknesses there. Jakob Kriel out. I think Sanguini's in, but their scrum is still strong though. I mean, with a guy like Carlu Sadi, they should be able to hold in the scrum. But when that crowd gets rocking, I think it's difficult to stop that tidal wave of support.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. Ulster overs for me. I'll also probably have a look at Ulster tries as well. I can see this being a game where there's not a lot of kicking at posts as far as penalties and stuff go. Let's go on to the next game, Conductor. Sticking with you, the first of Saturday's matches, Zebra against the Glasgow Warriors. And here we got the home team underdogs. We've got minus 10.5 the Warriors.
Yeah, Brent, so I was disappointed with Glasgow last week. They should have been better. I'm not too confident on this game. I'd probably lean slightly towards the minus on the Glasgow Warriors, but nothing crazy. They were bitterly disappointed for me against the Lions, but they should have enough. They should have more than enough to put Zebra away at minus 10.5.
Right, Neil, your opinion on this one?
Yeah, Brent, similar feel to Conductor. It's quite tough to read Zebra, especially when they got a home fixture. Glasgow quite unpredictable, not great on a big minus away from home. But then again, Sam Johnson and Nick Gregg in the midfield, Carl Steyn outside of him, for me that's enough quality. Ross Thompson commanding things from fly half. Big back row of Wilson and Dempsey. So I think they'll be able to muscle the Zebra up front. Hopefully the weather's a bit better in Italy, which I think will suit suit Glasgow. Zebra are one of those teams which do struggle to score points, so that's why it makes them quite tough to take on a home plus. So for me, I've seen enough. I'm not going to read too much into this. Small player on Glasgow -9.5 if I can find that.
Right, well, staying in Italy for the next game and staying with Neil, we got Benetton up against Ospreys here, and here we got home team Benetton, who I must say have improved since I saw them a few seasons back. They're -3.5.
Yeah, Brent, for me, this is a second very strong fancy in the URC for me. I'm going to take Ospreys +3.5. Couple of reasons. Ospreys coming over after a very, very disappointing loss against the Sharks. And for me, the scoreline, I know it's easy to say this, but it did not do the game justice at all. Ospreys, I felt like they commanded the game for long periods of time. And then a breakaway try by Jeremy Ward and a couple of 3 freak drop goals from Butcher Chamberlain, a couple of the goal line dropout, where you wouldn't expect those sort of plays to convert into points. I think ultimately skewed the game in favor of the Sharks. I think that the scoreline blew things out of proportion. I can tell you right now is if Ospreys had beaten the Sharks at home last weekend, this game would be a choice game or Ospreys -1.5. I've been very impressed with Ospreys this season. They've got a big second row of Adam Bard and Alan Wynne-Jones, 2 Lions back there. They're going to be absolutely dominate in the set piece. Gareth Anscombe is an absolute kingpin at fly half, regaining his best form back in the Wales squad. He's going to have a point to prove. Sharpshooter from the tee. Yeah, I can't understand this points line. I do know the game is obviously in Italy, but for me, Ospreys +3.5. It's a cracker. Get all over it. It won't be there come Friday morning.
Certainly going to fit in the newsletter in some form or other, whether as a best bet or in the accumulator, and you can subscribe to that down below the show. Conductor, it's going to be hard to come in with a case for Benetton after hearing thoughts on sports with these arguments.
The defense rests, I guess. No, he actually makes a very compelling argument regarding the quality in the Ospreys side, and I mean a Reece Webb. I mean, we obviously haven't seen the side yet, but I imagine they'll probably go full strength. Reece Webb and Gareth Anscombe 19. I think it's Michael Collins is a big miss for them. I would have loved him to be there. I would have been even more confident if Michael Collins was there, but it's enough quality in that Osprey side to motivate that +3.5. Benetton, we are not great against Ulster last week. They are going to be generally a bit tough at home, but I probably would be leaning more towards the Ospreys. I agree completely with Neil. I think they've got a very good side, and Dave Cooney had 6-1 for them to top the Welsh table for URC, and I think that's an absolute banger price. I think they've got a very good side, and some very, very decent players there. More than enough Welsh international talent in that side to take it away. Likewise, there is a lot of Italian internationals in the Benetton team. If they do rock up, they can be very, very plucky at home. I'm staying away from the handicap. I think it's the first time. I don't know if maybe in URC. It's obviously first time in URC, but I don't know if it's the first time in Pro 14. You've got an all-female refereeing contingent. So you've got Amy Barrett-Teron as the referee. Joy Neville is that one AR, and the other AR is another female AR. So I find Amy Barrett-Teron's style very technical. She loves a good chat at scrum time. So I expect her to slow the game down quite a bit. And
a good chat. I think you're pulling out a mug of tea there and having a chat at scrum time.
And I think there's nothing the Italians like better to do than to chat to a girl on a Saturday afternoon. So they might be having some conversations there at scrum time. But for me, Benetton at home versus a Welsh side, that just screams me unders. It depends on the line. I'm hoping for 50, 51. It'll probably be 47, 48.5. If I can get a slightly higher line there, I'd like to go unders in that one.
Yeah, Wager Warlock saying to going unders on this one. Then, and I can tell you, Henrik Swart, he's definitely going to be unders. He's earmarked Amy very much as an unders ref there. So, we'll have a look and see what, obviously, it will depend on what line they come out. We'll stick with you, Conductor, for the next game. The Blue Bulls are in action. They came back very well last week in the second half. I was on it. I had a double, the Stormers and Bulls handicap, and at halftime, I'd pretty much written off my weekend, and the Bulls came back to keep me in the running at least. And now they play Edinburgh, and we've got the home team here, slight favourites. Yeah, interesting one. When I handicapped this game, I think I had it pretty close, but I think I actually had the Bulls edge in favoritism. What do you think, Conductor?
Yeah, Brent, it was a Saturday night. I was basically emptying that whiskey bottle into my glass. I was staring down a huge loss in the first, I think, 20 minutes or the 25 minutes of the Bulls game, because I was big on the Bulls plus in that game. Down on the scoreboard, Johan Goosen did his knee. It just seemed like the absolute perfect storm of calamity for me. I thought, Sherbets, I'm going to go to bed tonight, quite upset. And yeah, Chris Smith came on, and he was an absolute general when he came on. I mean, kudos to him. I've been critical of him in the past, but he actually commanded the game. I think he slotted all his kicks. Was fantastic. Bulls were actually physically dominant from about 25th, 30th minutes onwards. Even the Cardiff coach, Dai Young, said it's the biggest side he's ever seen. He's ever played against. The second biggest was Jake White's Montpellier side. So Jake White definitely brings the kettle when he plays rugby. So Bulls came back nicely there. I'll take them to beat Edinburgh here. Edinburgh got guys like Villacott have been playing very well. Graham Darcy playing very well. But I think we can see for me. I think the Edinburgh weather looks okay on Saturday. I think we're going to see a very clinical Bulls performance. Morné Steyn's flown over there, so I think we could see a very powerful Bulls pack complemented with 3-pointers to take the Bulls to win. So I think you can get 12-10, 13-10 for the Bulls. So that's where I'll be looking. I wouldn't be looking at the plus.
Right. Well, let's go Neil on that one. And Neil, I just want to sort of reiterate what the Conductor said. I've sort of, must be honest, I'd sort of said Christmas. I mean, I think he's a nice player, but I didn't really know if he was capable of stepping up to this level. And when Goosen went off last week, I thought, well, that's it as far as the Bulls go. And he really came on and he stepped up. And, if he can reproduce that kind of form week in and week out, he's going to do this Bulls a great service. So, and I know I'm mentioning that because I know you've sort of insisted all along that he is a good player, and I think he really did prove that last week. What are your thoughts on this one, and maybe give us a few words on what you thought of his performance last week?
Yeah, just to start off, I thought Chris was absolutely superb against Cardiff. I think he almost single-handedly turned that result around, just because he didn't look to do anything by himself. He almost brought that sort of that team performance from the Bulls, got the forwards going, marshaled the forwards around the corner, got the big ball carriers going. Whenever they had a chance at 3, they were 16-0 down. They just slowed it down, said, no, we're going to take points. Captain trusted kicker, knocked over the 3, kept that scoreboard pressure on. Eventually, one breakaway try, and it was now 16-10. Game on, a couple more 3-pointers. So for me, I think Chris was superb on the weekend. A criticism I do have of Johan Goosen is that he often operates on a wavelength that the other players aren't on. So in Currie Cup, you can get away with it on the big wide fields at altitude. You can afford to throw these miraculous offloads. You can do the odd chip over the top and regather it, and there's margin for error. But up north, narrow fields, night conditions, sort of on these 4 and 5G pitches, the margin for error is a lot less. These Northern Hemisphere sides are absolutely drilled in defense. They spend like thousands of pounds on their defensive coaches, their structures. They're very, very well drilled. You can't get away with that miraculous stuff. So the margins are a lot smaller. And I think the game up north is ultimately won when you have a 5-foot which doesn't try to dictate play by themselves, but rather looks to get the best from those outside of them and also marshals the forwards very well. Another factor of Chris Smith's play, which I've been quite impressed with, is his touchline kicking. And for me, that's one of the biggest criticisms I always have in a fly-off. If you get a penalty inside your 22 and you look to kick it and you only get it slightly outside of the 22, for me, that's my absolute worst in the fly-off. As soon as the fly-off starts putting it deep inside opponent's half, that's a nightmare for an opposition side. So I think that the Bulls have got an absolute gem and a backup in Chris Smith, and I'm looking forward to seeing him stay true to my words this weekend. But just touching on the handicap here, this is probably where I thought the line would come out. I still can't see the Bulls starting as favourites in an away fixture without their Springboks. But for me, there's enough quality and depth in this Bulls side to cover the spread. I probably won't take I'm a little bit sensitive after a tricky weekend last weekend to go outright on the Bulls victory, but I'm happy to take a +2.5, +3.5. The Bulls have some massive ball carriers in Coetzee and Jacques Duplessis, Ulrich Lowe, Strong set piece that they finally managed to clear that up. Ambrose Papier has been playing some good rugby. Zach Berger playing good rugby. Curtly Orenser was an absolute machine starting on the left wing after his injury troubles. I like David Krill quite a lot. I think he's a bit of an unsung hero in that Bulls back three. I look at the Edinburgh side and there is enough quality. I'm a bit nervous when I see that their loose trio consists of Jamie Ritchie, Luke Crosby, who's quite a menace at the breakdown, and big Willie Matter, and obviously Ben Vellacott playing some unbelievable rugby and narrowly missing out on the Scotland squad. So he'll have a massive point to prove. So I think it is going to be a tricky fixture. I wouldn't say it's an overwhelming result for the Bulls, but I think they could edge it. But once again, it's going to be a tight fixture. It's going to be a big close encounter. So yeah, Bulls plus for me, probably a medium strike here.
All right, we'll stay with you then, Neil. And biggest handicap from what I can see on the weekend here, it's Leinster up against the Scarlets. Scarlets were very disappointing last week, going down. I had quite a bet on them on over. I think it was over 23.5 points against Munster. They were very disappointing. They now go to Leinster, and Leinster here, who, for me, haven't been firing on all cylinders. They beat the Bulls convincingly in the opening week, but they haven't really looked as impressive as I thought they would. But they're 20.5 point favourites here.
Yeah, so Scarlets was a big sore for me. I got a message from the conductor about team news for the Scarlets Munster game. I see Munster completely changed, so I was quite strong on Munster before the week. Those who I spoke to knew, yeah, I was very, very strong on Munster, so I cashed out all my bets on Munster, and then I ended up taking Scarlets plus 3.5, which I thought was an absolute gift. After team news came out,
because they started minus 6.5 or something, huh?
6.5, 7.5 before kickoff. I didn't mind if the 6.5 or 7.5 didn't win. I just wanted my plus 3.5 Scarlets to win, which obviously we know that wasn't the case. Seriously worrying times for Welsh rugby if you get rolled over by a B side by 30 points at home. But that's besides the point. Leinster back at the RDS, point to prove, haven't been their hot selves, but once again, the biggest thing for me is Josh van der Flier back in the side. He's absolutely immense, up there with the top 10 loose forwards in the world for me. He's going to make a huge impact here. And yeah, I just can't see the Scarlets scoring enough points to stay within this cap. So for me, it's Leinster minus 19.5.
Right. And Van der Flier, if I'm not mistaken, conductor, he was man of the match against the Bulls in the opening game. And there they beat the Bulls 31-3. I think it was a 28-point margin. So 20.5, as Neil says, against the Scarlet side, that was a hell of a disappointing last week against Munster. Yeah, we always say the handicap's big, but sometimes in a case like this, you've got to look at it and say, not big enough.
Yeah, Brent, I was similar to Neil. I mean, when the caps came out in Europe, and it was Munster minus, I think it was Munster minus 1.5 or Munster choice game against Scarlets. I just said Munster will murder that Scarlet side. So I was also all over Munster. Then I suddenly had to then cash out and hedge and all that kind of jazz when the team news came out. And, obviously with news that Gareth Davies and Ken Owens, the two British Irish Lions, were playing for Scarlets, I was even more sort of confident that I'd done the right thing. And then, watching, I had all of King Midas' silver on Munster, and I had to flitter it away against, for the Scarlets. They were actually abominable. I mean, abominable. How Steph Evans is a professional rugby player is beyond me. He honestly couldn't catch COVID at the moment. They were breezing past him like he wasn't even there. I think he missed 2 or 3 like under 9 tackles. It was just shocking. So I agree with Neil. Scarlet's in a bad place, but they haven't been in a good place for a long time. But when a B team Munster, proper B team Munster comes and smokes you, I mean, it wasn't even close. And the Costello try for Scarlett was pretty lucky. The ball bounced into his hands on the halfway line, and he basically ran it in. That was just bounced the ball. This game, I don't touch Leinster. I just don't touch them at all. They are on my list of. They're just too unpredictable. They are full of talent. They can win by 50 or they can win by 5. Like I said in the game against Zebra. And I was on the group with you guys, and everyone's tearing their hair out about Leinster, and they need to score 40. They needed to score 47, I think, to cover the overs. And I said, guys, you can't touch Leinster. They're incredibly frustrating. I mean, they should have smashed Zebra by 60. They were so poor that first off. So I don't touch them at all. No,
I see Henrik
just
Hendricks come on the chat, and he's agreeing with you there. He says Leinster could beat the Handicap with up.
No,
I will say one thing though. I agree with you about Leinster of late, but I can tell you I followed Leinster for a few years. There were times where, for me, Leinster was like they were bankers. In other words, they would turn that consistent performance in. I do think they'll beat this Handicap. I'm with Neil on this one, but I do hear what you're saying. They haven't been that consistent. They haven't been that as reliable as they have been in the past. So you do get teams like that sometimes you just rather avoid punting.
Yeah, I mean, it was those. I mean, if I can only say they used to be my Canterbury of the North. When they had that Ryan Crotty set up at the Crusaders, and it was just like just chuck your money on the Crusaders and they'll win it. And it doesn't matter if they were even 5-0 down at halftime, they'd still cover the minus. And Leinster were that team, but their defense is not as good as it used to be. And it just seems like their ball skills have dipped a lot. And you can Stuart Lancaster and whatever, can throw his stories about the lack of execution, but that doesn't pay for your bet when you've lost it. So I won't touch this game.
Right, let's move on to the next game. Stay with you, conductor. It is Munster, who we would imagine are going to be closer to a full strength team at home to a Connacht, and here we got a handicap of minus 15.5.
Yeah, Brent, Munster obviously, like you say, rested a couple of players. Massive blow that Achia Snyman has re-ruptured his ACL. Man alive. Geez, that guy, if anybody deserves a bit of injury luck, it's him. If it wasn't his ACL, and then it was Daddy, the old barbecue fire pit explosion, then it's his ACL again. So he's just, the oak has walked across too many black cats in his life. So, yeah, he just needs a bit of luck to get back on the train. But so, massive blow for Munster. I mean, the games he's played did phenomenal. But like you said, they've rested their players. I expect them to name a full strength side against Connacht. Obviously, an Irish derby, so it might be a little bit closer. Connacht were incredibly disappointing against Dragons at home in Galway. I expect Connacht to get up for this game a little bit, so I'd probably be leaning a small plus here, but nothing massive.
Right, Neil, what do you think of this one?
No, Brent, I think I'm going against the grain here, but this is also another strong fancy from me. I'm taking the best Connacht plus I can find. I've seen it about 16.5 at about 8 to 10. Couple of reasons for me. First of all, Connacht have covered the spread in 7 of the last 9 meetings between these two sides. The next, which for me is massive, is Bundy Archie fit, available for selection. I know that he's going to get thrown straight into the mix. He's huge on defense, big ball carrier. So he's going to sort of blunt a lot of that Munster attack. Second of all, I'm very impressed with Tom Daly at 12 for Connacht. I really enjoy his distribution type game plan. And then they've brought across Mac Hansen from the Brumbies, who's been in some pretty electrifying form. I think Connacht have enough to keep this close. As I said, Irish derby, they're going to be fired up for this, especially after being rolled over by the Dragons at home last weekend. So 15.5 is far too big for me. They'll keep this within 8 points. So this is a strong, confident strike from my side.
Right. Well, let's stay with you for the final game. And this is at 8:35 on Saturday night. So we're either looking to pile on the winnings or chase our losses by this stage. And Neil, we've got Cardiff up against the Sharks here. And Cardiff are minus 3.5 against the Sharks side that, as you say, last week perhaps flattered a bit by the scoreline, but ultimately got the result.
Yeah, so I was on that Sharks plus 9.5 last weekend, so I was more than happy to clean up a bit there. Didn't expect them to win. I don't think anyone did, but that's just the nature of the sort of early rounds in the URC. It is a bit unpredictable as the teams sort of find their feet. But Cardiff back at home, especially after the humbling that they received from the Bulls in the second half last weekend, after stretching out to quite a generous lead. A bit of injury news, which is quite big for them. I see Josh Navidi is ruled out. Obviously, quite a important player for Dai Young's men. In the back row, but that's not as big a loss as it may seem. Josh Turnbull will slot in there. He's also a big ball carrier. Will cause the Sharks side quite a lot of problems. Willis Haloholo back in the centres to partner Ray Lilo, and then you've got an absolutely electric back three of Josh Adams, Owen Lane, and Helen Amos, who's just actually announced his retirement at age 27 from the game. So that's quite a bit of a shock there. So I think they're going to have enough quality to put the Shark side away. quite comfortably. The Sharks team use isn't that important for me. They sort of chop and change amongst about 25 players for their 23. I see that they've brought Cohen Bosch back into 15. He's super low on confidence, so I can't back a Sharks side with him in it at the moment. So I'm going to look for the best available minus. I think I've seen -2.5 at about 8 to 10, so I'm going to jump on that.
Right, I have to agree with you. Kerwin Bosch for me, and I see the conductor nodding feverishly there. Also not going to be convinced if Bosch is coming back in there. Are you on the Cardiff minus here, conductor?
Yeah, very much so, Brent. I just think Cardiff were just caught with absolute sledgehammer in that sort of last 50 minutes by the Bulls. I think they started so positively against the Bulls, and then that loose show, that absolute flipping hammerstone of the Bulls, just combined with some good kicking, and really just actually put them to bed. And I just think they were sort of just a bit shell shocked with the absolute size of the guys running at them for that second half. But I don't think that's going to be the case for the Sharks. I don't think they've got the real muscle that the Bulls do have. Agree. Kevin Bosch can be times very, very shaky at 15. Takia Abrams is injured, so Forming slots in at wing. I like Takia Abrams. I really thought he was dynamic. I don't think Forming will bring that sort of electric lightning feet that Abrams did. And as Neil says, the Cardiff side are littered with talent. Rayleigh Lowe and Willis Halaholo, Josh Adams, that's incredible. They've got some incredible players there. So for me, the Sharks put in a massive shift last week to win that game. Buta Chamberlain, fantastic all for the drop kicks and that kind of thing. I just don't see them repeating it this week against Cardiff. Dai Young, I really rate him as a very good coach when he was at Wasps. That's when I got to really understand him as a coach. I really, really rate him, and I rate this Cardiff defense. My main would be -2.5, and I'd even look at unders here. I really think that Cardiff defense is hard to penetrate. So, I'm going to join Neil on the confidence there on the Cardiff.
Yes, and welcome to Steph, number 86. I think, if I'm not mistaken, a first-time poster on the show. And then Jules, I mentioned him earlier, a big Dragons fan. He says he can't believe someone has backed the Dragons on the show. And yes, certainly we are confident. How times have changed. A year ago, we never would have said that, Jules. But please, you could join us to see that someone is tipping the Dragons there. Let's move on, gents, to the Gallagher Premiership. Conducting to stay with you for the first game. We've got Sale Rugby up against Harlequins. That is on Friday night, which means, of course, we've got a points line. And here we got the Sale of +2.5, so they're the slight underdogs at home. And Conductor, we've got a points line of 50.5.
Yeah, Brent, geez, Emma, it's not easy to oppose Harlequins at the moment with Marcus Smith. The way he's playing is just excitement machine. I mean, he's just playing so incredible rugby. I mean, to go down like they were at home against Bristol Bears last week, I think it was a Friday night, and to come back and actually dominate with some of the most incredible tries you can see. He's running it beautifully. Again, Don Brandt has to be the England number 8. For me, Marcus Smith number 10. Guys like Louis Liner, they're playing such phenomenal rugby. I don't want to oppose them. Sale obviously have been on the receiving end of some bad results lately. A far stronger side. I think Neil will give a far better indication of team news, but Tom Curry back, which is massive. He's incredible over the ball. Slows it down. If not, gets that turnover. Tuilagi, a guy like Denny Salamona. I love Denny Salamona. He's got a very fondness in my heart after a match-winning try against Argentina for England. I always like him. Obviously, Wilkinson at 10, I think, is maybe the only iffy thing. Sale, if Fife had come in, I would have been a bit more confident on the plus. For me, there's just no bet there. I'd probably look at an overs. I know overs on a Friday night is maybe a little bit risky, but with the way Harlequins play, and I do think Sale will be fired up for the game. I just do think that's maybe a slightly bit low line. So I do like the overs there.
Overs at 50.5. I see Harlequins 26.5 and Sale 23.5. Thoughts on sports. I know this is your favorite league, and I must say I've come after hearing you say how much you love the Premiership. I started watching it more, and I can't argue with you. Some of the games in the Premiership these days are absolute quality, and certainly watching a team like Harlequins is an absolute pleasure. But the question is, do they beat the handicap and win the match this weekend?
Sure, Brent. This is such a tricky fixture because there couldn't be a bigger contrast of playing styles. You got Harlequins who play the most expansive rugby. I don't even know if they have a defensive coach. I think they just play touch rugby all day long, forwards included. No line-out practice, no scrum practice, no defensive practice. Touch rugby and just watch highlight reels of Marcus Smith. So I think that's all that goes down in the Harlequins training camp. And then you've got the Cell Sharks, who are completely the opposite. Very, very set piece dominated game. A big underside. So, and also once again, if this game was at 4 o'clock on a Saturday or a Sunday, I would definitely be siding with the Harlequins minus. But I'm quite strong on a Cell Sharks plus 3.5 here. Under lights, Tom Curry slowing the game down. You've got the big ball carriers in Dan Dupree, Jean-Luc Dupree, John O'Ross, Curtis Langdon is an absolute menace at the breakdown. You've got Bevan Rod, who's recently been called up into that England side at loosehead. Nick Schoenart. So for me, that's a very big sale pack, almost close to their first choice pack. Only players that are missing is that 9-10 axis of Faf and AJ McGinty. But I've been quite impressed with Ruffy Quirk and Wilkinson, two youngsters sort of stepping up to the plate. And I think that the big ball carrying skills of Andre Esterhuizen and Falcons will be nullified by having Manu Tuolangi at 12. So it's nice to see sort of a big matchup there. Sam James, outside of Manu Tuolangi, has been very impressive. I've been tracking him down since his exit at Chief Days. So this is an absolute cracking matchup in round one. Also, Tom Foley on the whistle, bit of a technical ref, unders ref. So that's also another reason why it has me leaning Cell Sharks on the plus here.
Right, nice confident thoughts there from Neil. We'll stay with you, Neil, for the next game on to Saturday. The Newcastle Falcons against the Bristol Bears. And here we've got a virtual choice game. We've got I'm on player bets because the way they lay out their betting is just so convenient for me to keep one page open the whole time. And here we got the Newcastle Falcons plus 0.5 point against the Bristol Bears, edging favoritism.
Yeah, so whenever, I think I've mentioned it before, whenever I get a choice game, I always like to have a strong opinion on it. I just feel like that's an ideal opportunity to make some good money on the fixture. And for this, I'm siding with the Bears, one of my stronger English Premiership picks. Reason being is that Falcons have been on an absolute tear so far in the Prem. They've covered all the spreads, but I just feel like they're running out of gas. Similar to Irish in the sense that they're one of those teams which feel the same starting 15 week in, week out. So I feel like that a bit of fatigue could be setting in on the players. And then once again, you've got the Bears who are quite clearly missing three influential players from last season in Ben Earl, Max Malins, and Semi Randrandra. But there's still enough quality in this Bears side. And I know that Pat Lam is going to be absolutely furious about what transpired last weekend, especially after shooting out to a 26-7 lead away at Quins. So for me, they're targeting this game. In any other season, this is a 4 or 5 points minus handicap that you would get. You're getting a choice game. The Bears know that what needs to be done. They'll have enough quality to get this over the line. I don't expect it to be pretty. I expect the Bears to sometimes make it look like hard work. But at the end of the day, choice game for the Bears, must-win fixture. I'm going to have to take them on the board here.
Right, Bears on the board, and I can tell you if I back them, they'll definitely make it hard work. I don't think I win any bets. Easy. Conductor, are you joining us on the Bears?
Yeah, Brent, so I'm going to join on the Bears. And I think I agree with what Neil says. I mean, this was a season ago. It probably would have been -6.5, -5.5, probably -7.5. A little bit missing Randrandra massively is this. And Siali Pietau as well. If I've got the right Pietau, he's left as well. When they had Siali, Charles, Pietau, the two Pietaus, and Randrandra, they had such threats, and they look a little bit limp. A bit of a honeymoon night failure. Losing Ben Earl, Max Malins, and Randrandra, just three key players. But I think there's enough. I think there's enough ability in that Bears side to beat Falcons in Newcastle. They're a good side. A guy like Radwan, he must be one of the quickest players on earth at the moment. He can score absolute stunners. But I agree with what Neil says there. Falcons have to pretty much play that entire team, that same team week in, week out. And I think it might be a little bit tired. I was quite impressed with them against Saracens last weekend. I thought they played quite well in the last sort of 10-15 minutes when I think they ran out a bit of gas. I think Bears if you're even going to catch Bears being pumped up, they're going to be pumped up for this game. They played phenomenal rugby for that first quarter against Quins and just let it off the first half against Quins. And then that Quins, it was more the brilliance of Quins that undid them than Bears being poor. When Quins are on fire, it's just so difficult to keep them out. It's like playing at Fiji Sevens. When they're in that mood, there's no answer to it. So I'll probably back them again quite confidently against Falcons.
I will stick with you, conductor, for the next game. It's Wasps up against the Exeter Chiefs. And here we got the Chiefs favourites at -5.5 points away from home.
Brent, I'm all over the Chiefs, yeah. I think there's more than enough quality coming back for them. They were so clinical against Worcester this previous weekend. You could just see what a massive difference Sam Simmons makes that side. You got guys like Joe Simmons there. They're packed with quality. I think they'll, for me, Exeter will want to make up for that poor start they had to the season. Wasps look very shaky at times. I'm not a Jacob Umanga fan. He can be absolute something or champagne, pure champagne, and sometimes he's absolutely poor off the tee. I had Wasps overs there, Wasps and overs in that previous weekend game. He can be poor off the tee. Jimmy Gopeth is good, but the lad's knocking on in years and 38 years old. But for me, there is some weaknesses, quite a few weaknesses in that Wasp side, which a team like Exeter will exploit mercilessly, especially around that pick and go. So, Dave Ewers was just absolutely an absolute beast. You can just see what difference he makes coming back for Exeter. So I'm big on the Exeter minus, yeah.
Big on the Exeter minuses. Thoughts on Sports going to rubber stamp it?
Yeah, all over the Exeter minus here. When it opened up at 3.5, I absolutely raced onto that. Couldn't believe my eyes. We're talking about the Exeter Chiefs here with all their star players back. With the Wasps side is still missing, I think 7 or 8 first choice players. Whose captain of the ship is Jacob Umanga. Couldn't believe my eyes when I saw that line. So for me, very, very strong on the Exeter minus here. Just if you look at that Exeter pack, you see Luke Cowan-Dickey, Dave Ewers, Johnny Hill, Johnny Gray. There's just too much quality in that side to not cover a minus here against quite a poor Wasp side, if I must be honest. Henry Slade been in absolutely scintillating form, both off the tee and at outside centre, commanding the troops around. And yeah, so I think there's more than enough quality here. Stuart Hogg at the back. So I think this is probably one of my strongest players on the Premiership.
Quite interesting. I was just going to say, when I hear the confidence in both of your voices there, finding best bets at the end of the show may not be that easy because you guys are quite confident on a number of them. So looking forward to see what we come up with there. Let's stick with Neil though for the Worcester Warriors. Still got fond memories of them delivering a nice bet for us in the opening weekend. They play against the Leicester Tigers, and here we got the Warriors are +6.5. Neil, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky fixture because I do like to take a home side on the plus. I will be taking Warriors +7.5 here. I think that's the best plus that I've seen so far. A couple of reasons. Tigers are definitely not one of the sides which put teams away from home. They always seem to narrowly get the job done if they manage to get it done. So this season's an exception where they've managed to sort of overturn those 50-50s, unlike past seasons where they'd always sort of get beaten out at the death. It's nice to see that Marco van Staden's forced his way into the 23 at Tigers. I wouldn't be surprised to see him start. He's played superb rugby for the Bulls and for the Boks, so he's going to be a real asset for them. Another big player to watch is George Martin. I think he's only 21 or 22 years old, but he's a real menace in the second row or in the back row for the Tigers. But then if I look at this Warriors side, I see Matt Kovacic, the ex-Exeter Chief, at 8th man. He plays some fantastic rugby at Sixways Stadium. They've Duan van der Merwe on the wing, Rory Sutherland in the front row, Ollie Lawrence. I'm a big fan of him. Big ball carrying inside centre for Warriors. Melani Nana back at fullback. So I think that Warriors have more than enough quality to cover quite a generous spread here at home.
Right.
What do you think of that one, conductor?
No, Brent, I'm not going to touch that game. I was just I didn't watch the full Exeter game. I had my eye on the Saracens game, which I think would have been at the same time as Exeter versus Worcester. Watch the highlights. Looks like Worcester just rolled over and just played dead for that entire game. I'm not sure if that was just maybe to give themselves a rest. I don't know. They weren't impressive to me. And Leicester Tigers have been super impressive. And like Neil says, Mark Evanston, what an incredible addition to Tigers. They've been playing some incredible rugby. So I'm gonna stay out of that game. If push for a bet, I'd probably look at on the plus. I think a guy like Willie Hines does get everything going, and he keeps that scoreboard going with his ability around the ruck and things like that. And he does create penalties for Worcester, but for me, no, I'm not gonna get involved in that game.
Right, we'll move on to the next game. Just welcome to Sapang, watching the show for the first time. Him and I have worked together in the past, so good to see you on the show, Sapang. And on to the next game then, Bath up against Saracens here. Conductor, we'll stick with you. Bath plus 7.5 underdogs against Saracens, who sort of returned to the league as though they were never really away.
Yeah, Brent, this to me, I'm also going to say out of, unfortunately, there's nothing decisive in my mind. That Saracens pack has so much power, and they've got the ability to play a very slow game, which suits the style of the Rec. I've always had the Rec as a very unders game. It can be quite muddy and quite tricky to play there. I haven't seen the forecast for that game, but I think it should be okay. For me, I'd probably look at Saracens minus, but no, there's nothing strong there. I think Bath have a lot of quality to challenge Saracens at home, and especially if they've got a full crowd there. And I think taking into account what Saracens did to achieve their trophies and the sort of backroom dealings and all the sort of shenanigans that went on there, I think they've become a bit of a hated stepchild. I think there's going to be a lot of anger, or not anger, but generally resentment towards a general uptake of not enjoying the Saracens, not much support for them. So I think there could be a bit of anger at the Rec. So I'd probably look at maybe the plus there, but to me, it's nothing strong there. Gregory
Jamison just coming in saying he's very impressed with the conductor's fridge. I must say that fridge opens about 7 or 8 times normally during the course of the show. So it certainly is an impressive fridge. Neil, let's get on to you. Penultimate game of the Gallagher Premiership this weekend. What do you think of the Saracens match?
Yeah, Brent, for me, team news is going to be absolutely vital here. There are a couple of 50-50s in the Bath camp. If the Bath get the rub of the green in the injury news and team news, I'll definitely jump on a Bath plus 8.5. Just a couple of reasons. Huge back row for Bath in Toby Faletau, Sam Underhill, Miles Reid, the gingerhead menace at the breakdown. And then they also have Jaco Kutsia coming off the bench, acclimatizing to English conditions. So if all three of those are fit and available for selection, that's a big boost for Bath. Then you have Spencer at 9. I think he could be out this weekend. But they have recruited Joe Simpson, who's quite an experienced Premiership player, played over 150 games across the Premiership. Quality player. I'm a big fan of his. Just seems to get the job done. Very low error rate. Then also you got Danny Cipriani, fit and firing, back in the Bath number 10 jersey. I was very impressed with the youngster Orlando Bailey. I think he's going to have a very, very big future ahead of him. I remember watching him for the England under-20s, and I just earmarked this kid as one that I thought was going to go quite far. And then a couple of other good players is Max Ajoma at 12 for Bath. Big, strong runner. Then you have Jonathan Joseph outside of him, and then Fakuna Singer on the wing. So for me, there's quite a lot of quality in the Bath side. And Saracens just don't have the continuity as they once did in their sort of powerhouse seasons. So I think that they will be hoping that the team news doesn't go well for Bath. So bet depending on team news. If it does look good, I will jump on the best Bath plus that I can find.
And do they announce the teams at a specific time, Neil? Like the day before at a certain time? Because obviously from a punting point of view, you want to get that team news before the bookies have had a chance to wipe the sleep out of their eyes.
Yeah, so it's usually at about midday on the day before the fixture.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so the boys also, it's one of the things that I always missed when I was sort of betting back in the days when I had a bit more time on my hand. I used to be a bit more up to speed on the team news. Now, sometimes by the time I wake up to it, the line has moved quite a lot. Last game of the Premiership, though, we'll stick with Neil for this one. London Irish, and I can tell you that I got a message from Brendan O'Connell saying London Irish, his best bet of the week at 15-20 to win the game. They're -1.5 against Gloucester. But something Neil said earlier in the show made me worry, but he did talk about the fact that they played the same side over and over. So interested to see where Neil's going with this one.
Yeah, so I think that the bookies have priced this one pretty spot on. It's tough to have it would be tough to put Gloucester as slight favourites away from home, even though that they are a slightly better side. But for me, I'm happy to take the best Gloucester plus I can find. Chris Harris back in that 13 channel. He's one of the best defensive 13s in my mind, in just commanding the troops in those wide channels. You have Johnny Mann, Louis Rees-Zammit on the wings, absolutely electric. Jason Woodward at the back for Gloucester, the ex Hurricanes and Melbourne Rebels fullback. So yeah, there's enough quality in that Gloucester side to really take it to Irish, especially if the game gets a bit loose. And I just look at that Irish side and I don't know. I just don't know what the recruiting is behind the scenes. It just feels like season after season, they're just unable to refresh their side, add a bit of experience, add a bit of excitement. I look and their recruiting strategy is literally just to handpick average Australian rugbies from Super Rugby who want to earn slightly more money up north, and that's who they plonk in their side. So for me, one of the least exciting teams to watch is Irish, even if their games can end up slightly higher scoring. They just don't have a lot of players who really excite me in that team. So I love to take on Irish, especially when they are favourites. I love to jump on the plus on any team that plays against them. So I wouldn't be surprised if they manage to sneak a victory. It's been a long time coming, and I think this is their last home fixture for a while. But for me, I've got to take Gloucester on the best plus I can find here with the form that they're in.
So Brendan O'Connor, or Coyle as he's known on the Good for the Game forum, you might, after watching the show, just want to give a little bit of consideration to your best bet of London Irish for the week there. Let's go to another Brendan. It's Brendan Wessels, the conductor, final Gallagher Premiership game. And are you smiling there? Are you going with the thoughts on sports on this one?
Yeah, Brent, I agree with Neil's sentiments to the T. I think his thoughts on London Irish's recruitment is also very well put. This haven't seemed to be able to bring any fresh cattle into that camp to sort of rejuvenate it and really make it look something, look like a side that can compete for mid-table or upper table, etc. You've got two of the most electric wings in world rugby, and Johnny May and Louis Rees-Zammit. That's absolute lightning. You've got a lot of very level-headed Jason Woodward at 15. This obviously depends on team news, but I think if they can name the same team that they did against Sale, I can't see anything else but Gloucester here. I like Adam Hastings. A very dependable 10, and I love Jack Singleton as their hooker. This is a very, very decent Gloucester side. Ben Morgan is you probably find Teak that's softer than Ben Morgan. So there's some and typical Ruan Ackerman, he'll put in a hard shift as always. If that's the team they name, and obviously in European competitions, sometimes there's quite big turnovers. So we'll wait for team news. Like as Neil says, it comes out at 1 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. So if you're going to place your bets at Hollywood Bets, just make sure you only place at 4 o'clock, because that's when the rugby trader gets back from teasers. Don't place it before then, otherwise your account gets closed. So that's just a tip for all the rugby punters out there.
Great advice.
He normally finishes lunch at about 3:30, so it takes him half an hour to get back to the Durban offices. So just don't place your bets on Hollywood Bets before he gets back. But yeah, I'm very much in the Gloucester camp here. I think they're a team on the rise. They did their best to try and lose that game against Sale last week. They were in complete control. But this will be an exciting game against London Irish. I'd like to see the points line as well. Reason being, Paddy Jackson is very accurate off the tee. So I think he normally does keep that scoreboard ticking, and Irish do score 1 or 2 tries, but I think Gloucester will win that quite easily.
Right. Well, let's move on to the Bunnings NPC. We've had some brilliant analysis of all the European games, but now we're off to New Zealand. We've got 5 games to chat about here, and starting with the Friday morning fixture, South African time. Brendan, we'll stay with you. Northland against Otago. We've got a 55.5 points line and plus 4.5 for home team Northland.
Yeah, Brent, so I would have been very much in the Northland camp here, but they're not going to be playing at home in Whangarei. The game, because the Northern Territory is under level 3 COVID, I think. So they've had to move the game to, I think, Rotorua, which is actually quite a far away. I did look on Google Maps. I think it's about 200 kilometers, which I think is the exact length of New Zealand exactly. So they basically have to go to the other side of the North Island. So they're traveling a bit away from home. Quite a strong Otago bench, but I still like the Northern side, even though they're not at home. I probably won't go for the cap. I'll probably take Northland overs there. I do for some other reason think it's going to be a bit more of an exciting game. Otago's back three. I think it's Freedom Vakolo and Willem Monica Roy. They're guys that love to run the ball. I think Sam Gilbert as well is a 15. So very attacking from Otago. And I think there will be a couple of points. I've been quite impressed with Northland, especially since Rena Rangers come back. So I do expect them to score a couple of points. I'd probably be small punt on Northland overs and then maybe a small punt on the Northland plus there.
Right. Neil, I don't know. I know you also bet a bit on the Bunnings. It's probably not as big a focus for you as the Premiership. Have you had a look at these?
Yeah, I've had a brief look. I've got a one or two stronger fancies for the later games. No real fancy on this game. Northland Otago. For me, Otago is a huge underside. So I think I might contradict the conductor there. I'm not too familiar with the Northland points. I know that they did manage to score a couple last week, but I think that was with a day fixture. But this is going to be a night fixture at a slightly unfamiliar venue. So I'll be looking to take the best total unders that I can find at about 57 or 58.5 at about 8 to 10.
Right, we'll stay with you for the next game. It's early hours of Saturday morning, South Africa time. Waikato against Taranaki. Taranaki, I can tell you, let me down big time last week. They were the best bet in the newsletter. And needless to say, when I put that best bet in, I do follow it quite heavily, and it was a big loss for me there. Although in the end, only by half a point. I think we had the -7.5. And if you took the -6.5, of course, you would have been fine. Unfortunately, I should have taken the shorter price in retrospect, the -6.5. And here we've got, Neil, -4.5 Taranaki, the visitors.
Yeah, so I think this is a tricky fixture. I personally haven't seen any Waikato team news, which generally does tilt my opinion in favor of one side. But the Bulls have been very, very impressive so far in the comp, unbeaten, and it's a mark of a quality side, in my opinion, if they're able to play away from home, have the ball not go their way, have the ref give the 50-50 calls against them, and still manage to come out with a 7-point victory away from home. So there is some good things brewing in this Bulls camp. So I'll look to side with that train and keep it going with the Bulls and look for the best plus possible. So I think you can find that at about plus 5.5 at about 8 to 10. Another notable thing is that Waikato haven't played in a while, so they could be a bit rusty starting off. So maybe a halftime plus on the Bulls at about 2.5.
Right. Let's move on then. We haven't got your opinion on this one, Brendan. Let's get your one on the Taranaki game.
Brent. Like you say, Taranaki let us down massively last week. They just didn't perform like we expected them to. Like I said, the guys at -6.5 were absolutely in church on Sunday to give their thanks for that bet coming in, and the guys at -7.5 were cursing everything and everyone. I mean, it was just it was very unlike Waikato Taranaki performance.
And the -7.5 never looked like arriving, although it came close in the end. Although I lost that bet by half a point, or let's say by 1 point, I never felt like it just never felt like it was in the running.
Yeah, it wasn't one of those bets you lost in the last minute. It was basically the guys at the -6.5. I think, if I can remember correctly, I think the -6.5 was lucky to arrive. I think the guys were Otago was expecting the last. Yeah, they had a couple of 5 meter. I think they had a 5 meter line out within the last 90 seconds. So that -6.5 could have fallen away very easily. I've been very impressed with Waikato this season. It's a very tough game to call. And like Neil says, that the last time they played was 2 weeks ago. Waikato, they lost Northland, so I think they'll be getting up for this game, seeing as their last game was a loss. But on the other hand, Taranaki will be steaming about the news and the NPC this week that there's no promotion relegation. Obviously, Taranaki would have probably walked into the promotion for the Premiership. I don't know what effect that's had on their psyche. I don't know if they're going to be absolutely steamy for this game, or absolutely saying, well, what does it matter anymore, because there's no points in winning the championship. So, but for me, I'm leaning Waikato. Also, just to take note, this game is not going to be played, as far as I can remember. Sorry, it's not going to be played at the FMG. So I've read contradicting reports. As far as I understand, it's going to be at a neutral ground, a neutralish ground. so it won't be with pure home sport for Waikato. That's the last news I have it, but I still expect Waikato to be good. Yeah.
Right, let's move on to the next game. Canterbury up against Hawke's Bay. If I'm not mistaken, you had some strong opinion on this early in the week, conductor, on Canterbury, and I see they're minus 4.5. Is that handicap moved?
Yeah, Brent, this is by far the biggest bets I have for the weekend. I've literally loaded everything on this so far. When the cap opened, it opened at minus 1.5, and I absolutely smashed that minus 1.5, and I smashed Canterbury on the board at 0.80. Hawke's Bay coming off a shield defense against Tasman last week in Napier. Ash Dixon injured himself. He's so critical in that side. Generally, what I always feel is that there's a mental come down and a physical come down after a shield challenge. And I just think that'll be the same scenario here for Hawke's Bay. They really had an actually massive defensive stint against Tasman. They didn't allow much to come through them. The bodies will be sore, etc. So against Tasman, who are actually champion side, they played incredible rugby. They were phenomenal. They were beasts. I just don't see them playing the same rugby again in Christchurch this weekend. Minus Ash Dixon. Canterbury are outside the top 4. They can still obviously win the Premiership. Obviously what the guys are gunning for. They're sitting outside the top 4 after the rejigged log. So to them, a win is not negotiable. And adding to that, Hawke's Bay have another shield challenge next week against Waikato, I think it is. So for me, I think the mental preparation will be to try and beat Waikato home in Napier next weekend, and maybe sacrifice some points in Christchurch. Guys like Henry Styles and Reeds and Princep are very, very good for me for Canterbury. I'm all over this like a cheap rash.
Right, all over Canterbury. Neil, do you rather stamp that?
Yeah, Brent, all over Canterbury here. Snapped them up when I saw that it was a near choice game. Canterbury at home. Henry Styles, absolute menace. One of my favorite players in the NPC. So yeah, that's more than enough for me. I think that the handicap's drifted out to about 2.5, 3.5 for me. I'd still probably take it at those levels. It's tough to say when you're on the home side as close to choice favourites. But once again, Hawke's Bay, they love the shield fixtures. One eye on next week. They're not interested in this fixture. Canterbury at home must win. All that needs to be said. Conductor summed it up perfectly. Yeah, take the home side to get the win here.
Right, let's stay with you for the penultimate game of our show. Manawatu against Wellington, and here we got Manawatu plus 5.5.
Sure, Brent. This is so tricky to call. I think on a different day and a different year, I would be all over this Wellington minus. But at the moment, this Wellington side just can't seem to beat a minus at all. It's just as soon as they're favourites, they just absolutely implode. They do whatever they can to just not beat the minus. I think I'm going to add them to my red list of those who hate the minus, currently consisting of both the Cell-C Sharks and the Sail Sharks. So yeah, I think that this is a tricky fixture. Manawatu have been a lot more impressive this season than previous seasons, but I've seen the Wellington side. Where's Hurston? That's enough quality for me. I see Julian Sevilla at outside centre. I don't love that. That makes me very, very nervous. Unfortunately for him, he's a good bloke, but he can't catch the rugby ball, and that is something that is required in the number 13 jumper. So that is a big stress for any Wellington backers out there. But at 5.5, I just think that the rugby factory in Wellington will have enough to narrowly cover the spread.
Right, and let's move on to the conductor for this game. Any strong views on this one, conductor, or is it a game?
Yeah, Brent, I agree with what Neil said there. We're very lucky to actually get that win home against Wellington. They're going to be. I haven't seen I had a quick glimpse at the team sheets. I haven't seen in detail. I think there's no Dane Coles this weekend. I think he had the game, and I think he's off. But nevertheless, I think there's more than enough quality in that Wellington side. From what I did see, I'm just not sure at Aidan Morgan. I think he's at 15 this weekend for the Wellington Lions. I'm just not too sure from him. But other than that, I think there's more than enough talent there. Wes Goosen, very good player. Patafilo, I always bank on him to get one or two meat pies. He's more than decent. Dominic Bird, absolutely hard man in that locking position. Tane Plumtree, old John's son, he's an absolute beast as well. My only concern is Duplessis Karifi, flipping home. That oak is an absolute. He's just
machine.
I don't know if it's right. I'd rather play with 14 players than play with that oak on my side. He just gives away so many unnecessary penalties. I understand he wants to try and turn over the ball, but there's a time and place for everything. And to try and fly off your feet to the ruck and give away needless penalties and concede possession, stupid. So I'd probably look a little bit towards the minus there. I want to see points in that game. I'm very, very keen on points. The Turbos are playing great rugby at the moment. And obviously, as we know, Wellington don't defend. Brendan USA for the I haven't seen the team sheets for Turbos, but Brendan USA brilliant for me. Hurley Langton, also the other Lucy playing great rugby. Brett Cameron, he's renewing his career for me at the Turbos. I'm not too sure about Aaron Smith. I know he was at home with his wife. With his wife. I think she was giving him gears, so I'm not too sure if he'll be allowed out there. He's given the pink slip with this game. But look, I mean, Turbos have been playing great rugby at home. What I have noticed, a lot of these Turbos games, they generally seem to be quite windy, and it does blow from side to side. So it may be something to look out for. I think the game is at 5 on Sunday morning or 6 o'clock.
This one's at I think it's 8:05. It looks like here.
Awesome.
I think this one's on Saturday morning. Are we talking about the Wellington game still there?
Yes.
It's Saturday morning, the 16th.
Okay, then it's worthwhile having a look at the wind to see where it's blowing. Wellington, similar to the South African Lions, don't believe in defence.
We'll go to the last game of the weekend then from your side. It's Tasman up against Bay of Plenty. And here we got Bay of Plenty, Tasman minus 8.5 point favourites.
Yeah, Brent, I do expect a bit of a bounce back from Tasman after their Shield results. I haven't, to be very 100% frank, I haven't looked at this fixture at all. But just going off Bay of Plenty results and Tasman results, I think Tasman should cover this at home. I think they've got enough quality.
Right, excellent. Well, we'll get Neil to bring us home then with his last game. And Neil, I know you only got back from work like 5 minutes before the show, so thanks very much for sticking it out for what has now been almost an hour and a quarter. It has been a marathon rugby show, and really appreciate it. But tell us your thoughts on this final game. Is it one of your big fancies for the weekend?
No, Brent, no real thoughts on this game. To be honest, I was looking at the Sunbet lines just to guide me here, and Sunbet hadn't even priced up the fixture. So to be honest, I didn't even know that this fixture was going ahead. But I'll sort of just jump in here where possible. I think once again, team news dependent. Tasman, when they have all their stars back, are an absolute force, but they've really struggled against the spread this season. And I've actually made quite a lot of money opposing them week in, week out, because the bookmakers sort of price in the Tasman of last season where they were so dominant. So if they're fielding a similar side to previous weeks and Bay of Plenty are as strong as they have been, I'll look to take the best Bay of Plenty plus that I can find.
Right, excellent. Good thoughts from the guys there. Let's move on to the best bets, and Conductor, I'm going to let you go first there. Share your strongest fancies for the weekend for us. It's going to be tough to pull them out of what is quite a long line of fancies.
Yeah, Brent. No, by far my biggest fancy is Canterbury. I think it just could be a weekend where you're going to catch Hawke's Bay a bit physically and emotionally tired after a very, very big Shield game. I think the Canterbury team will be raring to go. So yeah, I think even on the minus 2.5, I'm a big punter there. And my next big bet would be Cardiff to beat the Sharks on the minus there. And I'd like to look at the points line, but those are the two by far the standout bets to me. I cannot see, now that I keep going over that Cardiff side, I cannot see them losing to a Sharks minus all their Springboks when you've got guys like Willis Holo, Josh Adams, you got quality all over the park for Cardiff. To me, that screams a great bet.
Right, and let's get thoughts on sports best bets for the weekend.
Yeah, so in the URC, definite best bet is Cardiff minus 2.5 or 3.5. Then close second is Dragons minus 2.5. And then third, Ospreys plus 3.5. And then also I like Connacht plus 15 or 16.5, whatever you can find. And then in the Prem, I like Bristol to beat. Probably take them draw no bet. You can probably get them quite similar odds to beat Falcons. And then the next very strong fancy is Exeter Chiefs minus 4.5 against Wasps.
Right, excellent. Some really great calls here. I'm going to have no problem at all putting the newsletter accumulated together tomorrow morning or whenever I send it out, probably tomorrow afternoon sometime. But guys, thanks very much. First of all, to all the guys in the live chat, excellent contributions during the show. Always great to have you on board. But then to my two guests, starting with you, conductor there. I mean, how many drinks did you manage to get through during the course of the show? We really should do the NPC up front where you could pronounce the names a bit easier, hey?
Yeah. When they run out for the tongue without the assistance of a lager, I guess. I mean, I'm well lubricated, Brent. So he's got to keep those beers flowing till Friday. So no, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, guys. Lucky to chat to you boys again, and yeah, I think we should hopefully have a very good weekend. As Neil put through, some actually great value to look forward to, and yeah, guys, let's do well. Let's beat the bookies.
Excellent. And Neil, thanks a lot. As I say, you deserve a good rest now. Go and have a good sleep and get ready for the weekend's rugby. Thanks very much to Thoughts on Sports.
No problem, Brent. Thanks for the listeners in the show, and let's take it to the bookies this weekend.
Excellent. Look forward to seeing you next week, Thursday night, 9 o'clock for the Handicap Rugby Chat. That